the September meeting of the Inlet and Beach Protection Board, our regular meeting, to order. We'll go ahead and do the roll call. Chair Vicki Myers is here. Vice Chair Mike Pearson.
Here.
Rhonda Dixon has emailed and she is out of town. Richard Rice.
Here.
And Dean Thomas.
Here.
Okay, you have the agenda that was emailed to you. Is there a motion for approval? Or any adjustments or?
Actually, I had a request. You know how David had done the diagram on the whiteboard?
Yes.
I wondered if we could draw that up in PowerPoint or something and include that in the minutes as well. You know, I roughly did something like this, but I don't have PowerPoint anymore.
Could we put that in approval of minutes? It has to have that included in the minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
How about if we take a picture of the drawing and put it in?
Yes, I have that as well.
Okay.
But sometimes, you know, that gets...
We snap the picture of it, because that would be an accurate representation of what was actually done at that meeting.
Could we address that under approval of minutes?
I agree.
Okay.
Okay.
So that was kind of discussion of approval of minutes. Do I have a second to approve the minutes?
Wait, we're on agenda approval. You need a second for agenda approval. Mike approved the agenda, you need a
He
second.
was right. That's what I'm asking for. Do we have a second to approve?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Who was that?
Who did the second?
That was Richard.
It's not amended yet.
Okay. All of those in favor of approving the agenda? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved unanimously. Okay, approval of minutes of the August 23rd, 2018 meeting. Okay, we know that we want to add a drawing, a photo of the
Sometimes a picture's worth 1,000 words.
I agree. So you have a photo that you took?
I do. I don't have it with me, but I can email that to you.
actually think that we might still have to.
Yeah, last time I was in a meeting, that whiteboard was still in there.
Are we recording this?
We are recording it, yes.
I'll make sure you put this in
Okay, were there any other changes, additions, or corrections to the minutes? If not, could I have a motion for approval? As amended?
Yeah.
Okay.
Second that.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended? Say aye. Okay, any opposed? Minutes carry as amended. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the status of the beach and inlet post-Florence. And we're going to turn to our staff here to give us a report.
It is changing hourly, literally. Yesterday I spoke to a member of one of the state agencies at 3:30, and my answer was different at 3:30 than 4:30. So we completed several visual inspections of the Strand Post Florence and of the inlet. The engineer was contacted, and survey crews have completed initial analysis of 17 transects. That's exactly what we did for Matthew as well. That's about a third of our total number that we do for a complete analysis each year. We believe that the beach should look good considering it's going to take a couple weeks to get the final survey data done. But in the meantime, 2 days ago, the Office of State Budget Management asked for a 24-hour turnaround on losses from towns. That was unprecedented, usually does not occur that fast. I don't know if that has anything to do with some of the media reports that have been harsh on administration at the state level and Matthew and how fast they've responded to that event. But needless to say, our survey group and Fran worked to try to get some kind of rough estimate together, and based on what he told me yesterday afternoon, it looks like the Central Reach area rough estimate lost 150,000 cubic yards. The west end didn't do too bad. When you add up the entire beach inlet to inlet, he's estimating rough estimates that had to go in for this 24-hour turnaround at 165,000 cubic yards. And then based on cost estimates that were used from Matthew in the past, with a mobilization of $4 million if there's not another project here going on, it's a total of about $6.8 million in losses for that. That included sand fence and vegetation, planting that would be required. He's assuming permitting would require the same things that they did when we initially did Central Reach. In regards to initial damage to sand fence and vegetation from our vegetation contractor, that was a quick view before all of the follow-up flooding that occurred, but it was about $5,000 in damage to current items that were out there. There was also some black foam that came up from the ocean that were on the plants that you could see a residue line that I have some pictures of, and I've communicated with him about that. He feels like the rain that fell afterwards probably washed that off, and the plants that were affected won't have any problems, but that's to be seen.
So then what I'm hearing from you is that most of the loss then came in the Central Reach area?
Most of the loss came in the Central Reach area, according to his initial early estimates. And again, the initial timeline he gave us on turnaround was 2 to 3 weeks to have hard numbers, but they needed something at the state level within a 24-hour turnaround, so this is what we have so far.
Okay. Well, I would like to say on the record that before we lost power, I was watching Central Reach do exactly what it was designed to do, which was protect the front row and the homes behind the front row. We had those gigantic rolling breakers that were breaking onto the new beach strand instead of breaking onto the dune. And had we not had that sand out there, those waves would have been breaking on our dune, and there's no doubt in my mind that they would have broken through that dune within a matter of hours and been washing over the front row and onto the second row and third row and on back. So it did exactly as it was designed to do, and I congratulate Fran and David and everyone who worked on getting that in place, because it succeeded marvelously. So, and the fact that there's so much of it still here, I'm just amazed and so thankful. So, congrats, kudos. And I have the photos if you want to see them. So,
I think that's next on the agenda.
so then at what point do we turn in our losses to FEMA? Is this what will go into FEMA?
The email made it sound like at the state level that they were going to begin stuff with FEMA. We are already, FEMA has a new digital program
Okay.
that's just rolling out, and we are already uploading documents that are preliminary documents they need, like personnel policies and insurance policies that the town has. But whenever they have their kickoff meetings, we'll get further instruction about entering categories.
Okay.
And we haven't had correspondence about when those kickoff meetings will start.
Okay.
There's FEMA still in response mode right now. I mean, they haven't shifted to recovery.
Okay.
Just because of some of the, Conway's cresting this morning,
Yeah.
so there may be a while.
I just know that because you guys were so proactive with Matthew and were so on top of it, that we were able to get into the money quicker than some of the other towns last time. So I know you're experienced in getting in there and getting it done. did you guys have any other questions? I'm assuming that wraps up the status of the beach and inlets. Did you want to address the inlets at all?
Yeah, I know the status of Lockwood Folly inlet dredging was next, so I can include where we are with that. As far as the initial review of the inlets, it looked good, but we wouldn't have anything until we got surveys. I did coordinate with the Army Corps of Engineers. Initially, their answer up until yesterday, well, it was actually bouncing back from their field office until yesterday, but they said that they hoped in the next few days to complete a post-Florence survey of the inlets. Any supplemental emergency funding that would be coming down would be following their survey going in. So they would wait to have to hear back about that.
Okay.
It would be dependent on survey conditions. And we also let the Coast Guard know that one of their buoys on the from the Shalote Inlet washed up on the west end, and they're going to retrieve that Aton whenever they can.
Okay. And the Shalote Inlet sustained no major damage?
As far as what we saw, it's hard to tell, but they should be doing that survey at the same time.
Okay. Guys, did you have any questions for Christy?
The only other correspondence I just thought about that I had is that Steve Stone, the deputy manager for the county, sent an email to the Corps as well, and we were copied on it, and he said that he had gotten some feedback from one of the captains and that they were able to navigate Lockwood Folly, but they'll wait on condition surveys.
Okay. So then that wraps up number 4. Number 5, status of the Lockwood Folly inlet dredging issues. You guys remember the last time we met, we discussed the Lockwood Folly issue in detail, and then that evening, David received a phone call about the sand from one of the projects was going to go to Oak Island and due to easements. So if you want to just kind of bring everybody up to speed on that.
Okay. We did get confirmation that the Corps approved our easement document, and the attorney Noel Fox, for several days the mail was not running in Wilmington, but it's up again, and the majority of those documents are out. As far as any changes to the scheduling of dredge projects, the Corps thinks that the Merritt project for just strictly navigation is going to be pushed now until November. And they don't know about any additional, like I mentioned before, supplemental funding, and if there'll be any changes to the other projects or contracts.
So is that bid that's out right now, is that on hold, or do we know?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I haven't seen anything additional come out.
Okay. So as far as we know, it's still out. Do you think there's a chance?
Yes, as far as we know, it's still out, yes.
Okay. Is there a chance that this could change? Could Florence change the whole scenario here? Do we have a chance to get back in? And if so, what do we need to do?
I don't know, but I could tell you what I would do if I were the Corps program manager. I would pull back from it, wait till the surveys come in, reassess, and then see what's going to happen with this almost $2 billion federal appropriation that's going to be made. That's what I would do, but that's just me. I think that the opportunity, the whole reason for doing the state memorandum of agreement and cooperating locally is because the feds didn't have any money. The Corps of Engineers have run dry on the federal appropriations, and I think this may be an opportunity. They may perceive this as an opportunity to get whole again for a short period of time, however that long. So we're trying to engage in that and pulse just where they are, but right now, I don't know.
Okay.
We queried the Corps on that, and the response that we got back was limited to the status of the merit. We were really specific when we asked the Corps about that aspect of it, because that's what we're interested in
Right.
primarily. And the response that we got back was tailored to addressing the merit specifically.
Okay.
You said the easement package is out, correct? They're out.
Easement documents, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Did you guys have any other questions on the status of the Lockwood Valley dredging? Okay, the next item on the agenda was the status and possible revisions to the resolution establishing the town of Holden Beach's position on Lockwood Valley Inlet navigation maintenance and associated least cost method of disposal placement. As you recall, at our last meeting, we came with a draft of the resolution. We worked it up pretty hard. Christie went back and incorporated those changes. And other changes from David and Christie, and I think Graham Way went in and made a couple of adjustments, and the final version went to the BOC's, it was in the BOC's packet, and that meeting was subsequently canceled due to the hurricane. Now, that still sits in their packet, waiting for their next meeting, correct?
Correct.
I guess I wanted to give you guys one last look to make sure that everything got in there that you wanted to get in there, exactly the way you wanted it. It's a draft. I mean, they can make changes when it goes to them. They will edit it as they see fit, so. You know. That's where that stands, and I just wanted to make sure that that made the agenda. And again, we're still sitting with this being a very important document that we want to make sure gets done as quickly as possible, correct? And communicated far and wide.
Yes.
So we're waiting on the BOC to adopt that and before you guys can take it everywhere.
Yes.
Okay, so did anybody have any comments on that, or?
I have some very minor edits. Can I put those in an email and send them, or?
I don't think you can put them in an email because that would be, we can't
We can discuss.
govern by email. You know, that'd be open meeting law violation.
So what do you want to?
Now's the time.
Okay, so on the very first page, there's the AIWW acronym,
Which,
about halfway down the page.
Yep.
Typically, you would
Spell
have,
out.
you know, I think in the very first whereas
Yeah,
is the opportunity to put that.
yeah, okay.
And then on the second page, in the first resolution, towards the end of that first resolution, the cycle of every 2 years for this purpose and placement, should it say of sand on Holden Beach?
I missed where he was.
Now therefore, we're,
Towards the end of that resolution, the second line from the end of that resolution, cycle of every 2 years for this purpose and placement
of
of
sand,
sand. And then finally, in the second resolution, be it also resolved, towards the end of that first line, widening project does occur in the future. That was all I had. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything else? Can I have a motion to make those changes?
So moved.
All those in favor of making those additions or changes?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carried unanimously.
And just so you'll know, I think that the proper way to do it was slip sheet it in the
Okay.
commissioner's agenda package, and it's already there. These are fairly inconsequential, but they do elaborate.
Great. Okay, we are whipping through this agenda. Number 7, Inlet and Beach Board announcements. Our next meeting is October the 25th. Christy, was the Brunswick County Shoreline Protection or the CRC meeting rescheduled?
Yes, I had that as something I was gonna announce. The Brunswick Shoreline meeting has been rescheduled, but the only thing they have so far is mid to late October, and they're gonna make follow-up announcements, because they need to decide what their venue's gonna be and availability.
Okay,
The CRC just has canceled listed on their website, and it doesn't show that it's been rescheduled. And then you guys had asked about meeting change dates for November and December because of the holiday.
right, and you were gonna, the staff was gonna check calendars.
Right, were you able to, okay. Staff proposes the November meeting being November 29th, if that fits into scheduling for the board, and December 20th, if that fits into the board schedule.
I don't know if you guys have your calendars with you. Do you want to decide that at the next meeting? Do you have your calendars with you?
What was the December date again?
December 20th.
I'm okay with both of those dates.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I am too. What about you, Richard?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Sounds like we're all good for those. We don't know about Rhonda, but it sounds like the 4 of us are good.
Okay.
Okay, those are the 3 things I had on the announcements. Does anybody else have any announcements? No? Okay, next item on the agenda is the consensus of a short report to the Board of Commissioners. So, as you remember, when we were set up, we need to send a report to the commissioners each month over what we covered, which seems kind of silly since you're all here, but anyway. I wrote down status of the beach and inlets post-Florence. The staff provided an overview of the conditions and issues relative to the beach strand and inlets in the aftermath of Hurricane Florence. Overall, the beach and inlets fared well. Since Reef Project fulfilled its job as a shoreline protection project, there were no washovers. I guess I should take that out since you didn't really say that. The preliminary post-storm survey has been completed and results have been sent to ATM for analysis. Status of Lockwood Folly inlet dredging issues. Since the last IBPB meeting, it has been learned that another dredging project will be awarded to Oak Island. The stated reason is a lack of easements. The issue was discussed. Status of resolution establishing the town of Holden Beach's position on Lockwood Folly inlet navigation maintenance and associated least cost method of disposal placement. Because of the cancellation of the September BOC meeting, the draft resolution from the IBPB is still pending. We feel this is of the utmost importance. Several small changes were made.
So in the first paragraph, did we say anything about the Corps of Engineers doing their survey and when that was outlooked to be completed?
Yep, well, we can do that.
I think that was in Christie's status initially.
Okay, the Corps hasn't done one, but our engineers did, right?
Correct. The Corps, I did talk about the Corps. You're both right. The Corps will be conducting theirs of the inlet in the next couple of days, and then the damage information I gave you was from our engineer.
So the Corps will be completing their survey of the inlet in the next couple of days?
That's the email that we got.
Only because that could impact the second paragraph as far as the Lockwood Follows Bridge
Yep.
timeline.
Anything else? Mike, got anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay. So then with these changes, would somebody like to make the motion to adopt this to be sent to the commissioners?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. All those in favor of adopting this with the changes that we made?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously to send this memo to the commissioners. Okay, now we're down to public comment, so you guys are free to speak as citizens. Pat?
On your resolution,
Yes.
the second page where you start, whereas Oak West Stations 3 to 7, I believe you need to specify that we're not talking about Oak Island. We are talking about Oak Island here, right? You just say, whereas Oak West Stations 3 to 7, but you're assuming everybody is highly aware of everything here?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would just put something in about Oak Island and the island to the,
What we'll do is we'll make sure that we pick that up in the commissioners meeting.
did I hear correctly, you said that it was $6.8 million in losses?
That's his initial rough estimate. 4 million of that was mobilization, 2.5 was sand.
That was what I was interested in, was the value of the sand.
$2,550,000 at $17 unit cost. And it would be on the 150,000 volume for Central Reach.
Yep.
Morning, everybody. Number one, maybe I wrote the wrong thing down here, but pertaining to the easement documents, I wrote down that the Corps approved easement documents. Have we submitted the documents and that's behind us now? The easements?
No.
So I didn't write the right thing?
Go. You want to address it?
Yeah, I'll address it. The form has been approved.
Form.
The form, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to go get a bunch of easements that aren't approved by the Corps. And what works for us, we think, may not pass the muster of the Corps' real estate office in Atlanta. So that form has been approved. Those have gone out with the first wave, and some of them returned to the attorney.
So they've been sent to citizens, to park property owners.
And some of them have been returned. They're, it's an iterative process.
You made it more intriguing for me, the question.
I'm gonna be make it more intriguing. Once someone signs it and it's okay, it still has to go to the Corps for, I guess, ratification that we've
So how many,
clerked it, right?
how many people are gonna receive those forms? Just so we can understand the volume.
That's a no answer, and I'll have to get that actual answer for you.
Okay, appreciate it. My other question I have is that I understand the loss of the 160,000 cubic yards of sand overall, the majority of it came from the central reach. We are just so blessed overall that that storm didn't hit us head on. Because that storm, when it came ashore up at Topsail and all those areas, right, we have no idea what the amount of damage that could have happened. When Matthew came through, we took the brunt of Matthew, and it annihilated a lot of what I refer to as the frontal dunes. And so we were very blessed on that. My question pertaining to sand and sand loss is, we know exactly the loss that we had prior to this wonderful person that came through and attacked us, right? And I think on the east end of the island was 60 or 70,000 cubic yards of sand prior to the storm. Do we know what the storm damage was on the east end in addition to the 60 or 70,000?
I don't think he's down to that level of detail yet. It was just the initial look for the state, and as far as making the sections, he could try to quantify central reach because of our project and turning it in, but I don't think he's down to what exactly happened on either side of that yet.
My suggestion would be that we try to determine that, only because of the fact of what's going on with the Corps and Oak Island, and that's really critical for us to understand that.
And he should have that back in the next couple of weeks. That's what he's continuing to work on.
Okay, so he'll tell us what lost as a result of the storm. Okay, on the east end. Good.
I will have that on October agenda.
Well, don't hold us to that. I don't know, because you gotta remember that Fran will make an initial report, on those losses. I'm assuming it's gonna take a couple of weeks, but don't sign us up to that. Remember, he's also working toward crafting the annual beach monitoring report. So, he's got two things going. I want to interject here that whatever's lost on the east end, we're not going to be able to work that into a town-sponsored FEMA project, because that is not a locally sponsored beach nourishment project. So, yeah, we'll know that, but our glide slopes won't intersect as far as that being our responsibility and our ability to do reparations on the east end as far as it being a town-sponsored project, because that is not an engineered beach that the town has done before.
Yeah, I just want to know that from a
Right.
discussion that we're going to have with the Corps pertaining to the east end of the island and the allocation of
Right.
sand and where it goes.
Right.
Thank you.
And a follow-up, I agree. The follow-up is, David, I'm glad I think this storm we should use as a pretext to open up the dredging and sand placement for the next cycle. And that data would be very interesting to say, hey, the storm took away how much sand from the east end. It also, another thing that I would make sure that they do was that the easements are out and we're getting them back. And I would be very aggressive. I would just say, act dumb and say, hey, I know this storm, is kind of resetting a lot of things. We're assuming it's going to reset because here's some additional data. We're assuming it's going to reset some of the decisions that were made prior to this storm, and just go with that. Because what the hell we got to lose? I'd be aggressive with that, and what do we got to lose? They already made the decision. I'd assume that decision is going to be readdressed because of the storm. And here's some additional data to support Holden Beach getting that sand instead of Hope Island. So a follow-up, basically, when they say, you know.
Anyone else? Okay. There are no further comments and nothing from you guys. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So I have one last question. You know, based on last meeting and this meeting, I've learned a lot more about our projects here on Lockwood Folly Inlet. What's happening at the other end of the island? We keep tabs on the dredging and projects that are occurring down there. You know, are there opportunities to steal sand from there if that's going to become a part of our...
Right.
Do we have that spelled out somewhere? Again, with the hurricane, I haven't had a chance to dig into the ATM reports and whatnot online. So I don't
It's
know
kind of
what's...
mentioned, it's kind of glossed over in the minutes, I saw that in there.
So it's a question. You know, it's probably not as important compared to everything else going on. but I
Well,
wonder-
you gotta realize, first of all, that Shalott Inlet is not a federally authorized navigation channel. So it's not managed in the same context as the Lockwood Folly Inlet, which is a federally authorized project. The Shalott Inlet is permitted as a borrow source for a 50-year storm damage protection project. So that is an Ocean Isle Beach federally funded 2/3, 1/3 kind of project. So beyond that, you know, we only follow it as something that comes up as over the course of events happening, but we don't follow it like we do with Lockwood Folly Inlet. Pretty much it's the same reason why we claim that sand from the Lockwood Folly Inlet should go here, is that the argument holds true for Ocean Isle Beach,
Right,
too,
right.
is that it goes that way.
Yeah, that's right.
What, as a follow-up to that, since we're rewriting the rules for what was happening for the last 30 years, then I'd say, if they're gonna rewrite those rules, we should rewrite the Shalott Inlet rules. You can't have it both ways. You can't go, you know, we're always assuming, you know, east to west sand placement. Again, that's an aggressive stance, since those rules are being, you know, thrown out the window. I'd say, you know, kind of make a point that we expect to be considered for the Shalott Inlet if we're not going to be considered for the Lockwood Folly. Just to make that point.
It's gonna be a hard point to make, because it's not a federally
I understand.
managed inlet.
I
I mean, that's, and the.
But they're doing it, right?
And, well, the authorization for Lockwood Folly Inlet does include a provision for it to be placed on Oak Island. It's just that has not been the practice over the course of the last 40 years. And
Not only
But there's
practice,
so
I mean, I
many
thought
things
that was the
there.
rule, is they had to go to the least cost method, and they're not. So, I mean, you know, that's, you know where I'm going.
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay, is there anything else? Okay, I entertain a motion for adjournment. Okay, we are now adjourned. See you guys next.